Okay, how's it going, man? How are you? How are you? How is everyone with the band and given the circumstances around the world? How have you been sort of dealing with all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing pretty good. COVID's been difficult for everyone, obviously. I mean,
Mm.
for obvious reasons. But for us, it actually hasn't been that difficult, to be honest. Yeah, we're all vaccinated, and yeah, our guitarist is actually from Taiwan, so there were some issues, for him coming to Slovenia, where we live, me and
Mm.
our drummer. But apart from that, yeah, there haven't been many issues, surprisingly.
Yeah, well, that's good to
So
hear
all
because
in all,
obviously
good. Yeah.
it can be a bit difficult depending on your circumstances, but obviously it's going to be interesting to see if you guys can make it to Australia later on in the year. We're sort of fingers crossed and hoping it'll go through, but obviously this will be if it goes through your first time in Australia, I believe, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're really hoping things work out, but the way the COVID situation is, you never know what's going to happen in the future. So we can only keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you got to try and sort of get back to some kind of normalcy, I guess. But you guys have been trying to get down here for a while, right?
Yeah. It's been a while. And like you said, if everything works out, this is going to be our first time in Australia. So we're super stoked. It's only a shame that we're actually trying to get to Australia in times like this. I kind of wish we would done that sooner, but it is what it is. And yeah, we're just hoping for the best.
Yeah. Anything obviously apart from like the gigs and things like that? Is there anything that you are kind of wanting to do down here if you get down here at all?
We haven't actually thought about that specifically. Maybe we'll catch up with some friends we've made from Australia from our past touring if we get the chance. I guess that's one of the things we're looking forward to. But like from me personally, I can think of a single thing that I would really like to do, but I'm just the kind of guy that arrives at a place and then looks for things to do in the moment, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's obviously one of the perks of being in a band and being on tour is to get to see a lot of the world. What's been some of the highlights over the career of the band? Seeing places that you wouldn't normally see. Anything that stands out in mind at all?
Yeah, probably doing Asia tours, like China, Japan, Korea, Thailand, stuff like that. Just
Mm.
because when we also did America and Europe, obviously, but America is kind of like similar to Europe, but like compared to Asia, it's a completely different world, at least to us Europeans. And for me personally, Japan was like the highlight, just because I'm a total fan of their culture and language and everything. So
Mm.
for me personally, yeah, Japan was amazing. But yeah, like I said, China, Korea, Thailand, really, really amazing places. Yeah. So
Yeah,
those are
and I mean, obviously, sort of heavy music in general worldwide always obviously unites everyone together. There's a common sort of thread there. But I mean, crowd responses, is that the same across the board, or do you find different territories sort of respond to your music a little differently?
um I kind of want to say it's I mean, it's definitely not the same 100%, but I feel like heavy music or music in general kind of transcends throughout whatever region or whatever place you are. So I kind of think like people appreciate music kind of in the same way, never regardless of the country you're in. So yeah, I particularly haven't noticed like any differences in terms of that. So yeah, people are just excited to see you, to listen to the music, enjoy it, and yeah, I think that's it.
It seemed like, especially at this point in time, like people would be enjoying the live shows even more so because there's been scarcely much, not a lot of like tours and shows happening around the world at this stage. I guess. I mean, have you been doing much shows at all lately? Have you had a chance to do many at all this year or this past sort of 12 months or so?
Yeah, we actually were able to pull off one tour that was like 2 weeks long, and it was just a European show, predominantly just Germany and I think one show in Switzerland. But even that one got cut short for the last 3 shows because Germany went back into a lockdown, and the whole package of the tour just decided it's best for everyone to just leave the last 3 shows and just go home.
Yeah.
It was already, I mean, the shows were really awesome, but they were restricted. Like the promoters had to get bigger venues in order to not have 100% capacity, just because of all the regulations. And even I think for some venues, even if everyone was vaccinated, they had to do the additional tests to make sure they didn't have they weren't COVID positive for that day. So it was for some shows, even though there were like, I don't know, 100 tickets, I'm just saying, for example, 100 tickets, maybe 80 people showed up just because they didn't meet all the requirements. Something like it was pretty tough, but the shows were really awesome. It shows that people are really missing live shows and concerts and stuff like that.
Definitely. I mean, obviously, during the band's career, this has probably been the longest time where you've not been able to do consistent amount of shows, I suppose. Has that been difficult to kind of deal with that kind of lack of shows, so to speak?
It's been the longest time we haven't done any shows, but for us, it kind of fit well because we were actually in the process of recording and writing new stuff. So that was actually cool. But it shows like once you start doing shows again that you're kind of out of shape and need to get back into that touring and concerting cycle. So it's really strange when you think about it. Like when you're so used to touring, it kind of becomes like your a habit or something you're so used to. But once you don't do it for a year or two, it really kind of becomes strange going back on the stage and performing again. It feels like you need to get back in shape again, just like if you would go to the gym like for 1 year and then 1 year you take time off and you come back, you feel like, oh shit, I'm out of shape.
It's one of those things you got to kind of keep up, I suppose, like you say, like going to the gym and things like that. And you mentioned working on new material, but obviously you're still promoting your last album. Forgive me for pronouncing this wrong. Is it pronounced Yōkai or Yōkai?
I think it's Yōkai.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously the 4th album in your sort of career, you kind of feel like, I guess you have a bit of an idea as to what you guys want to achieve, like you've got a bit of a signature sound and kind of stuff. I mean, how was it writing this album? Was it difficult, easier, given that you've had a few albums in before that?
Oh, yeah. So for like you said, this album is kind of like different from what we've used to do like in the past. To be honest, it wasn't that difficult to write this new album just because we've had 2 new guitarists, and they brought a lot to the table because from previous albums, most of the songwriting was actually done by our drummer. But now that we've had 2 new guitarists, they've contributed a lot to our sound, to the ideas, to everything. So it was kind of like a breath of fresh air for the band, and it makes sense to incorporate that into the new album. And in terms of like for the future, we're always like kind of like looking towards making a different album than the one we did previously. So we're kind of not aiming for the same sound with each and every album. We're trying to explore new ideas, new genres to incorporate into our music. So we're always open and never like constraining ourselves to one particular sound or one particular way to make our music.
Oh, that's good, because obviously some people kind of are scared of changes, I guess. And I don't know what kind of feedback you've been getting from the fans. Have they been responding positively to the new album at all? Or?
We've been actually getting a lot of mixed feedback, but we were expecting that, like, because, like I said, the previous albums were basically just one type of genre or music, and our fan base were used to what we were doing, and we've kind of decided, you know, to drift apart from that. And when we've put out our new album, like the first listeners were obviously the people who were in our fan base at the moment. And you know, some of them were liked it and some of them didn't like it, but we were expecting that kind of a response. But yeah, the longer the album's outside, the more people listen to it, the more people are introduced to our music. I think our fan base will expand to new listeners that maybe didn't like what we did before, but like what we're doing now. So I think the people who like our older stuff our older stuff will still listen to our older stuff, but the people who didn't like our older stuff and like our new stuff will listen to that. So we kind of broaden the audience that want to be exposed to our music.
I mean, listening to the album, it is quite diverse, definitely more diverse than the previous stuff. A lot of different sort of styles and genres. What was some of the inspirations and maybe some of the personal influences that were kind of going into some of the songs on this album?
I mean, obviously, we're all fans of Asian culture and anime from Japan and stuff like that. So that was definitely one source of influence. I guess we also listen to a lot of different music, like especially when we're on tour. You know, we write the music we write, we play the music we write, we listen to bands who play similar music every night on tours. So obviously when we're listening music for ourselves, it sometimes won't be just metal, or it won't be just the thing that we're used to listening on tour. And that spreads out through rock, rap, whatever. And yeah, I guess some of the influences we draw were also from the bands we were listening at that time. So it's everything from either rap, some rock. Yeah, it's just I kind of feel like it's like a Frankenstein of everything. We're all influenced and listening at that time.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of a hybrid, I guess. I mean, some of my favorite bands are all like sort of hybrid sort of bands, you know, from mix of influences and stuff that you listen to and word of mouth. And I think it's great because it obviously keeps the music interesting for fans and for obviously the musicians like yourselves as well. Because I'm sure as someone who creates music, it must probably get a little tedious just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was also part of the reason we decided to write this new album the way to do our new album the way we've done it, just because I think there's a limit to how much music you can write in the same cookie cutter style, you know, time after time, because it's from a certain point, I think you're just repeating what you've done, like with the previous albums, and doing new stuff. I think it kind of feels fresh and interesting for the musician as well. Plus, if you have like a tendency to try and do something as an artist, I think you should be able to do that. You know, if you want to try something and then say, oh, but I don't want to stray away because we're doing this type of music. I think that's not the point of being an artist. Like, what's the point of being an artist if you're not able to express what you want to express? Like, I feel like that's the definition of being an artist. And if people resent you for that, I mean, you shouldn't really care, because I think you should be able to do whatever you want to do. And if people enjoy it, that's great. If they don't, I mean, they don't.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with that. It's a great attitude to have towards music. And I think some fans kind of miss the point of that because they're probably not musicians themselves. So they don't have that creative sort of mind and set, you know, which is, I guess, maybe a little hard to explain to people who are not into sort of in that world, I guess. But like you said, you can't really sort of take too much, you know, of that in stock, you know. So, but it'd be great to see some of these songs live, obviously down in Australia. We're looking forward to it. Obviously, fingers crossed that the tour happens. And you're coming down with Signs of the Swarm, who was a band that you have you toured with them at all before, or?
Oh yeah. We did tour with them. We actually toured with them first time in our European tour with Ingested, Distant, Signs of the Swarm, and us. I think that was the whole package. Yeah, that was the first time we met, and yeah, they're really great guys. So we're super stoked to tour with them. It's gonna be awesome.
Awesome. Well, any last words at all for the Aussie fans before you hopefully make it down here in June?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to come in summer, see you guys. Australia is awesome, and yeah, hopefully you guys will be able to grab tickets, and yeah, we'll see you at the shows.